Hi, Miss Perry. This is my vlog for my English assessment. So I will read my poem and then I will do the analysis. Three Young Soldiers by Alex Harris. Shots. The bang rifle shout when fired, and the smoke that seeps out of their noses. For a soldier on the battlefield, these trenches are no place full of daisies and roses. Man down. Incoming. Three young soldiers march through the crowds. Step 1, Step 2, Step 3, march like a warrior through the town. Retreat. You are your country's hero, he told himself. You will march forward, lead our nation to victory. The tale of a naive soldier. When the young lads arrived, it all changed strictly. Cold, bitter. Three young soldiers bundle up close. The first lay his head on the cold stone. The second and third woke up with bugs and rats in their coats. 3 hours later, the first soldier was never coming home. Glory, victory. Two young soldiers shoot bullets into the distance. Cannons and rifles sing a symphony of terror. Left and right, many need assistance. One soldier down, the enemy, the pain bearer. For friends and family, three young soldiers became two, and two became one. Being a war hero was said to bring pride and glory. Little did young lads know, fighting was no fun. The last one took his life, found bloody and gory. Finished! Hooray! Is that it? Is the Great War finally over? For many who came home, they could not stay sober. For the young men who came rolling in like boulders, let us not forget the three young soldiers. So, here's my analysis. My poem, Three Young Soldiers, is set in World War I, in a time period of 1914 to 1918 when the First World War was taking place on the European front. I intentionally never mentioned whether they were British or German soldiers, for the sole purpose of trying to get across that, in my opinion, there are never any real winners in a war. My poem is told from the perspective of a third-person narrator. This poem was inspired by the moving words of Wilfred Owen's Dulce Decorum Est, with a similar setting and tone. The poem has a consistent structure and form, and uses rhyme in every second line in all stanzas up until the final stanza. This poem is written not to discourage soldiers from going off to war, not to protest or advocate against war, but to identify and highlight the untold truths of going off to fight in the battlefield. Three Young Soldiers opens up about the realities of war, how young men were convinced by the propaganda around them that going to war was an act of heroism, an appeal to patriotism. The one thing that made it even more interesting to me was that both sides of the war in World War I thought they were the good guys. There was even propaganda on both sides with quotes along the lines of, "God is on our side." I would say this is intended for young adults to middle-aged people. This poem isn't necessarily dark and morbid, but it does highlight and capture some of the less appealing elements of war, which was completely intentional. The poem uses personification in a few stanzas to really capture a day in the battlefield for the reader. The image that I have tried to create is subtle, yet confronting, in the sense that I am trying to accurately portray the reality of war, while still keeping the language and imagery fairly calm and collective. I also feel that I've left the poem with a conclusion that the reader can think about even after they finish reading the poem. It finishes the poem with an important message and doesn't shy away from the fact that many people died in the war and very few came home alive and well. Three Young Soldiers. Thanks.